be here. Thanks. I don't have health insurance, so I know I'm like a walking disaster waiting to happen on so many levels, but on that one as well. But thankfully my dad's a doctor, so he gives me free medical advice. And I called him the other day to ask him what's the first thing to do if a condom breaks. And he said, not call your father. I was like, what's the second thing? Wait a month and trip on a treadmill? Take notes, ladies, it works. So my sister just got married and I was the maid of honor at her wedding, and she said I could wear whatever I want. So I wore this beautiful white gown with a veil. It was actually her bridal gown, only a size smaller. And ever since my sister got married, my mom's been trying to get me to date more, and she's like, you should try online dating. What do you have to lose? Your job? And then she laughs and laughs because I lost my job. And she's like, I'm the funny one. And she shimmies. So I have been dating more, and here's a piece of advice to guys: when you're taking a girl out on a date, be sure to tip the waiter at least 20%, but no more than 30%, so that we see that you're generous, but not also a waiter. I can make fun of people in the service industry because when I'm not doing comedy, I actually bartend. And I was looking for another bartending job recently, and I walked in for the interview, and they turned me away. They said, I'm sorry, ma'am, we're looking for a bartender with over 12 years experience. I was like, oh, so you mean a loser? You don't bartend for 12 years and not smell like dead dreams. I know what dead dreams smell like, because I date them. It's like my biggest fetish. Well, if we're talking about fetishes, I guess my biggest fetish is people who love me. It's so rare. Speaking of people who love me, my ex-boyfriend, may he rest in peace. Not dead, he just has sleep issues. He came to visit a couple weeks ago and he stayed the night, and he spent the entire night snoring, and I'm just not used to having something in my bed like making noise without an off switch, but and he's like, kept me up all night, and he's like, I'm snoring, he's like, punch me and I'll stop. So the whole night I'm like, ugh, punching him, and the next morning I felt so bad about it, and he's like, you were so mean to me, is it because of my girlfriend? He's in this like open Facebook relationship with this girl who's way more successful than me. She's like this like indie music blogger who's like, I know that doesn't sound cool, but she's, you know, doing what she loves and gainfully employed. And I'm actually happy for him, and I'm happy for her, and I'm happy for me. Like, there's nothing more erotic than sleeping with someone who's dating someone you want to be like. Just because that's like the closest to that level of success that I'm ever going to get. Even if I achieve it someday, like, you don't appreciate it when you're in it. You only appreciate it when you're like vicariously fucking it. Thank you. I was doing comedy in Germany recently, and I was in Berlin. And I went on a date with a guy in Berlin just for like research purposes, and I showed up 8 minutes late to the date, and he yelled at me. He was like, that's so un-German of you. And I was like, thank you. Just because I'm Jewish, so it's like nice to be called un-German for other reasons. And just to preface, before I went to Berlin, I spoke no German. Like, the only word that I recognize in German is the word Juden. Just because every time I've seen it, it's always starred. Is that too soon? Like 60 years too late. I learned a couple other words in German. I learned the word for pubic hair in German is Schamhaar. I didn't learn that from my date, thankfully, but Schamhaar actually translates to shame hair. Shame hair, like how German is that? I don't know the word for pubic hair in Italian, but I'm sure it's a lot more loving. Something like body pasta. I learned the word for vagina in German is mushy. One word that makes me want no one to ever touch it. And then the word for Holocaust Museum is actually antique market. Yeah, it's sad. This is also sad. My friend recently, she asked me to recommend a good tearjerker for her, something that would really make her cry. And I told her that she should watch 45-year-old single women stare at other people's children. That makes me cry, because that's gonna be me, you know? And she was like, no, I meant a movie, and I was like, I'm not Netflix, but if I were, you should see Precious. Have you guys seen that? Yeah, it's so relatable. Staring at a mirror. I was in Whole Foods the other day, and I saw this woman talking to her obviously adopted child. Whole Foods. And I thought, note to self, when I adopt, don't give your obviously adopted child an even more ethnically inappropriate name. You know, he's already going to be the only Cambodian in the Montessori school with a cleft palate. Why are you calling him Mordecai? My friend had a kid recently, and I was hanging out with my friend and her little daughter, Zoe. And my friend was like, Jenna, you are so good with kids. I could watch you and Zoe play peekaboo all day long. And I was like, we're not playing peekaboo. Zoe's just too unattractive to look at for long periods of time. She's not symmetrical. I'm not amazing with kids. I feel like you could maybe tell that in my comedy, but I do volunteer at this youth center, and they always tell the teenage girls to hold out for sex, because sex is so much better when it's with someone you love. And I'm like, ugh, all that matters is that they love you. Have you ever had sex with someone you love? It's awful, it's so emotional. When it's with someone who loves you, you just sit back and let them do the work. Last time I was in love with this guy when I was 23. He was a depressed hipster bike messenger, which is really it's like chai tea. It's two words that mean the same thing. You know? Chai tea. And we used to lie in his bed all day long just 'cause he couldn't get out of it. He was depressed in his blanket depression. And I remember our first date, he took me out, and I noticed he had a scar on his arm, which he said he got from an accident when he was a little kid, where he almost had to get his arm removed. And then he said, could you imagine where I'd be now if I had no arm? And I was like, oh, not here with me. And at the time I meant it, but then as we got more into the relationship, I was like, I'd rather him not have an arm than be depressed. And not just for the street cred of dating someone with a disability. I feel like if I was dating someone without an arm, they'd never leave me. Or the rest of the world. Alright, that's a new joke. Thank you guys. I'm going to close on this just because it is a college humor show. I had a job interview recently with this guy who dated a friend of mine in college. Sorry, date raped. Friend of mine in college, yeah. It's what are the odds? Well, 1 in 6. Very awkward job interview, but I thought I nailed it because I have the charisma of a serial killer, but I never heard from him. So I waited the 2 weeks, and then I gave him a call, and I was like, hey, did I get the job? And he said no. So the next day I showed up, 8 a.m. sharp, ready to go. And he's like, what are you doing here? So I said, I'm sorry. I thought no meant yes.